Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice little 6-game Major League Baseball slate. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Helps the channel a lot, really do appreciate it. We had some good victories yesterday, hopefully we can get some more today. This slate is pretty interesting. Pitching is a lot rougher than it's been the last week or so do keep that in mind. But we do have a pitcher we do like a lot, Kikuchi. Let's look at the weather though. Looks like everything's going to be clear, so I don't think there's going to be too many issues, weather concerns today. So let's go ahead and get into this one. So let's look at our pitchers first. Kikuchi is the top overall play for Houston against the Angels. Now, I do think a couple Angels bats are okay here, but he's been solid in his one start against them with 6 strikeouts, scored 22 fantasy points. Even though he gave up a couple earned runs, I do think Logan Ahope is a good option at catcher, so to keep that in mind. But Kikuchi's got the best overall potential on the slate. Some other guys that we'll look at, Brian Bello, for Boston, has a pretty interesting situation here. I think he's a extreme GPP play, but he has some upside, and he's definitely capable of a solid game here against Tampa Bay. Again, I do like a couple Tampa Bay bats, but that's kind of true for all the teams on the slate. Then we'll look at Javier Assad for Chicago Cubs. He's got a a good matchup against Washington, though he did struggle against them last time he played them. However, he's been really good throughout the season at times, and he has some upside. Not super high ceiling, but with his price point, he doesn't need to score a ton of points to pay off here. Looking at Brandon Paft, he's also an extreme GPP play. He also has a tough match against Milwaukee, and he did terrible the first time he pitched against them this season, but he's had some big games lately, and I think he's capable of a good one here, though he's high risk, high reward, so he is extreme GPP play. The last extreme GPP play I have is Lewis, whoopsie, where'd he go? Severino, for the Mets. He has some nice upside in this game against the Philly, though he's high risk, high reward because Philly is decent at hitting home runs too. And while in the last game he pitched against them, he did score 15 fantasy points, and that was with a couple home runs. I do think he's capable of scoring decently, but he's not a must play by any stretch of imagination. The other few boomer bust plays, Eric Fetty, Zach Liddell, Luis Ortiz, and Patrick Corbin. The way I look at those guys is that they are capable of scoring a decent amount of points, but they're very unlikely. The three avoids today: Tobias Myers, Jose Suarez, and Tejan Walker. So let's look at our catchers here. Yanier Diaz is going to be a top play for Houston. He has some really good metrics today, and he's definitely a capable hitter. He has struggled recently with a lot of strikeouts, but he's definitely has upside on the slate, so he's definitely worth a look. And then Logan Ahope, who I already mentioned, he can be a solid play today. He's been good against Houston this season, and I think he's one of the few guys from the Angels that look solid on the slate. Though there's a couple other guys that are decent as well, like Taylor Ward and things, but he's definitely in play here. So the ownership actually is going to go to Victor Caratini. I suspect that he will be in the lineup as well, but we'll have to wait and see who starts there for Houston. Regardless of who starts, I would definitely want to utilize one of the pitch catchers from that game if that's possible. The other one would be William Contreras from Milwaukee, who's been phenomenal as of late. Looking at first base, Bryce Harper does jump off the page as a top overall play. He's been phenomenal against the Mets this season. He's been pretty good lately, too, getting some good hitting games and has some home run upside, so he's definitely worth a look here. Brandon Lowe also looks solid for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is kind of sneaky today, I think, and while he has struggled at times this season, he has some good metrics for this particular slate. But I do like Patrick Wisdom a lot. He can also play first or third base, and he has some phenomenal metrics today. Despite the fact that he's struggled lately, he's definitely capable of a good game here, and he's dirt cheap at $3,000. As for the ownership here, Patrick Wisdom, JD Martinez, and Pete Alonso. Looking at second base, I do like Jose Altuve a lot here. He's going to be hard to roster at the price point, but he's capable on the slate. If you pay down at pitching, he makes him a little easier to get in there. Brendan Lowe also looks solid for Tampa Bay in this one, and he's been a little bit better than some of the other. Sorry, I already mentioned him. He's been better than some of the other options at this position. I think he fits better at second base than he does at first as well. Keto Marte and Nico Horner are both also in play here. Now, Horner is actually kind of interesting as he's kind of a cheap play, but I also like Brendan Donovan, who's kind of a low-owned upside guy. The ownership here, Jose Altuve, Jose Iglesias, and Brendan Donovan. Looking at third base, Isaac Paredes is a core play for me. He's been pretty good for the Cubs at times this season. He has some home run upside today. He's also been phenomenal against Washington, and I think the Cubs are going to have a good game today, so he's definitely capable here. Isaac Paredes could also fit in here as well. Uh, uh, sorry, Patrick Wisdom can also fit in here as well, who I already mentioned, and then Rafael Devers. As for the ownership at this position, Patrick Wisdom, Isaac Barati is going to take most of that ownership, I think. So it's definitely good to kind of go chalky at that position. Looking at shortstops, we have quite a few guys that look decent here. One would be Zach Neto, Jeremy Pena, Dansby Swanson, and then CJ Abrams. But I do like Paynes at around $4,000 for one of these three, and Neto, Swanson, or Pena. And I think you can mix and match these. Though Dansby Swanson will be the most owned of of that group. Now you could also look at Mason Wynn as kind of a cheap play, and then Louis Angel Acuna. He might end up continuing to start for the Mets. If he does, he'll be somebody that is dirt cheap that you can really pay up for. And honestly, if we knew he was going to start for sure, he would be kind of a core play because of his price point and the way he's hitting the ball right now. So looking at outfielders, we do like Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, and Corbin Carroll, the top overall plays, with Taylor Ward, Sia Suzuki, Josh Lowe, and Alec Burleson being the contrarian plays at this position. I do think that the Angels are kind of high risk, high reward, but they're definitely capable today. And Houston is definitely probably my favorite team to stack up on the slate outside the Cubs. So looking at the ownership, though, Ian Happ, JD Martinez, Jordan Alvarez, Sia Suzuki, Corbin Carroll, Brendan Donovan, Jesse Winker, O'Neill Cruz, Brandon Nemo, Kyle Tucker, Tyrone Taylor, and Garrett Mitchell. Overall, I think this slate is going to be pretty low scoring. I think it should be good scoring for the bats, but it should be low scoring in the pitching. And so I think it's probably kind of punt your pitchers a little bit. Maybe go with an expensive guy and a cheap guy, and then kind of just run out the other guys. So with that said, thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments,